Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in Jew. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching, that really hurt. Calm down, Mick. If you're feeling charitable, please smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter, @MoviesTVMad. Third video in one day, but what do you expect? Zack Snyder's Justice League has been announced, of course, and the buzz keeps on going, and we've got a few things to talk about. I haven't even decided everything that I'm going to cover in this video, so sit down and relax. Now, there's a rumour coming from the daughter of the man who created the Justice League in DC Comics, and she was asked by a fan on Twitter, when do you think Zack Snyder's Justice League will be released? And she said, the 20th of May, 2021. Not only is this the anniversary of Zack announcing his version of Justice League, I think it's the date that Justice League was actually originally launched and created. It's an interesting date. It's a great date. It isn't the Batman now released in June as well, if that sticks as well. Very interesting times. But our old friend Grace Randolph has been at it again after hearing a lot of buzz of maybe Batfleck returning to do his movie that he should never have been moved away from. We don't know the truth. We know he said he didn't feel it anymore. Of course, that's not the truth. They pushed Zack away. Now, I want to cover something that John Aaron Garza said maybe last year. He said it, and he said there was issues between Zack and Ben. I think we know now, and Zack said it in an interview, that that Warner Brothers, Sujihara, wanted the film to around 2 hours. Now, Zack did a cut for them for around 2 hours, 20 minutes. Now, what John Aaron Garza actually said, that maybe he felt disappointed in Zack for kind of doing what they wanted and not going with his vision, or not doing the longer cut, whatever it was, right? So obviously, maybe Ben was disappointed, but not necessarily angry with Zack, just disappointed. But then you put yourself in Zack's point of view. What could he do? They're the bosses. They own the card on this franchise, on all these characters. He wanted to keep his position as the guy who's molding the clay for this franchise. So he tried, but in the end, he had to go because of what was going on. It's ridiculous. We are where we are, but we are back, baby. So our mate, Grace Randolph, said this about the possibility of Batfleck returning in his version of the Batman. One more thing. I think it's extremely unlikely that WB would undercut the Batman, which for the most part has gotten a great response and is in the middle of filming, with any new Batfleck stuff, especially since they don't know how Snyder Cut will actually perform. Right, Grace? That's your opinion, Grace. That's not a fact. You don't have any information. You stated yourself that you think, and you don't know this. So let me tell you what I think. First of all, it doesn't undercut or underscore Matt Reeves the Batman. Matt Reeves the Batman is part of the cinematic side. We keep on talking about this, don't we? We keep on talking about this till people get it. If Ben Affleck's The Batman was to be developed and done and executed, and for us to delight in and see, that would be part of the HBO Max, part of the DCEU franchise. And so there's no issue here. You're not undercutting or underscoring anything. But right now we don't know, because it is early days. She's right. I don't think anything's going to be decided yet. As I said earlier today, I genuinely believe that obviously, Zack Snyder's Justice League is coming next year, and I believe David Ayer's Suicide Squad cut is coming as well. Those things are set in stone, and I believe definitely going to happen. No issues there. These are two things that we should be extremely excited about, and I think she's partly right. If the response, which it is going to be, intrigue level, HBO Max is going to get subscribers. This is a good thing. We are going to have Zack back, but doing content for HBO Max. So be excited, but the issue is, it's Ben. Will Ben want to do this? And this is what we're going to have to wait and see. But I definitely feel that Grace is jumping the gun. And the problem is, it's all very well giving your opinion, but you're talking about things you don't know about. So you as a really popular blogger, you're saying, Well, I don't think so, because they've already got a Batman, but you're not thinking. You're not thinking properly. You're not thinking that the DCEU could have an HBO Max side of the franchise and you leave the kind of theatrical side untouched. Walter Hamada has a plan. There's no reason for that plan to be changed. And Zack can do his plan, his original plan, via HBO Max, Warner Max, DCEU side. There can be two different sides of the same coin. And for me, that's brilliant, and that works, and that's really, really exciting. I've really tried to avoid the mainstream media's venomous reaction to Zack announcing that his Justice League will be released. They called us toxic fans, that we don't deserve this victory. And there is actually a Vanity Fair have done an interesting article talking about us, talking about the release of the Snyder Cut. And as I say, I've tried to avoid it, but I can't avoid it anymore. I'm going to have to meet this head on and deal with it once and for all. So settle down. Try and not get triggered, and we will expose these people after reading this article. So this is from Vanity Fair, right? And this is by Joanna Robinson. Never heard of her. I'm sure she's a lovely lady. Is releasing the Snyder Cut of Justice League a victory for toxic fandoms? HBO Max is using the promise of Zack Snyder's vision to build buzz. There may be a hidden cost. By Joanna Robinson. Wow. Back in 2015, in the packed Hall H of San Diego Comic-Con, Warner Brothers panel host and actress Aisha Taylor was doing what all Comic-Con panel hosts do, hyping up the crowd. But the language I saw her use to introduce director of the upcoming Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice has always struck me as unintentionally chilling. Wow. I know somebody out there has some unnatural love for the person who is about to come out on this stage, but it can't be as deep, intense, or unnatural as mine. The crowd erupted into hysterical screams around me as director Zack Snyder bounded onto the stage. 5 years and at least one controversial film later, that unnatural love helped achieve what many considered impossible. Like Superman rising up from the grave in 2017's Justice League, the fabled Snyder Cut will emerge in 2021, the result of Warner Media's finally acknowledging a long and occasionally toxic fan campaign that mixed good-intentioned fundraising with coordinated and vicious social media attacks on critics, myself included. Oh no, Joanna, I'm so sorry. As one company, in its desire to stir up attention around the launch of its streaming service, HBO Max embodied bad fan behaviour? Or is this just a new normal of fandom ownership in our social media age? It's interesting, right? She doesn't actually give us an example of her being attacked, but never mind, we will go on. Because we're not snowflakes and we can take it. The Snyder Cut, if you've been fortunate enough to dodge this particular geek controversy, is the name fans gave a cut of Justice League they believe existed when Snyder left his work on Justice League in May 2017 in the wake of his daughter's death. Warner Brothers handed the film to Marvel alum Joss Whedon, who had been sacked by Marvel Studios, by the way, to complete. The resulting film, an unwieldy Snyder-Whedon hybrid, satisfied neither critics nor followers, and some die-hard fans became convinced that if Snyder had been able to complete the film on his own terms, they would have gotten a much more satisfactory team-up movie with some of DC Comics' most famous superheroes. The hashtag Release the Snyder Cut was born. Plenty of earnest pleas came with it, but also vitriol that was extreme, even for Twitter. Wait, really? I missed this extreme stuff. Can you show me where it is? Including harassment campaigns targeted at critics. Wow, yeah, because basically we were just pushing back and we never did anything that bad. But anyway, we carry on. HBO Max, Warner Brothers and its employers, former DC film chief Jeff Johns left the platform entirely after receiving endless Twitter attacks. And director James Gunn, who was hired to write and direct the Suicide Squad sequel for the studio, discovered that his new gig came with at least one death threat from a user with a Batman avatar. Hang on. Entirely after receiving endless Twitter attacks, Hang on, now let's go back to Jeff Johns. DC film chief Jeff Johns left the platform entirely. No. Jeff Johns has never left Twitter, and if you find him, he is actually still on Twitter. So that's not true. Anyway, then we talk about, James Gunn, who was hired to write and direct a Suicide Squad sequel for the studio, discovered that his new gig came with at least one death threat from a user with a Batman avatar. Unfortunately, we couldn't find any streaming. No, sorry, I don't know what that. Sorry, that's nothing to do. Let's start again. Right. So basically, she's claiming that James Gunn had a death threat. Right. So where is this death threat? Please show it to us. Again, empty stuff without any evidence. Anyway, we go on. Words, motivations and flavours of fandom matter here. The community surrounding the resurrection of Justice League is a particularly potent group of rock-solid DC comic devotees. There's also an undeniable the cult of personality surrounding Snyder, long before he took up the unofficial mantle of shepherd of the post-Christopher Nolan DC film era. Snyder already had rabid following thanks to applying a saturated video game aesthetic to geek-friendly Warner Brothers films like his Sapphire-drenched comic book adaptation 300, his dutiful adaptation of Watchmen, or his own creation, the sexed-up killing spree known as Sucker Punch. None of them quite match the fresh promise of his debut, a nimble remake of the zombie classic Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is a classic that even non-Snyder fans love. This woman is exposing herself. If you ensnared any of those Comic-Con attendees screaming for Snyder with Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, most would have been unable to tell you who was running either DC Entertainment or even Warner Brothers Studios at the time. It was Jeff Johns and Kevin Sugihara. Actually, they know that, and they always know that. Again, you're lying. Respectively, neither of whom work there anymore. Actually, Jeff is very much involved with DC and Warner Brothers still. Got that one wrong as well. Respectively, neither of them work there anymore. After the 2013 premiere of Man of Steel, it appeared to fans that Snyder and his wife and producing partner Deborah Snyder had their hands on the steering wheel of all things Justice League, which was DC's answer to Marvel's Avengers. The truth was always messier than that. Nolan's team was reportedly still involved after The Dark Knight Rises and heavily influenced Snyder's Man of Steel. Christopher Nolan co-wrote and executive produced Man of Steel. It's in the credits, love, right? It's in the credits. So that was their involvement. In fact, it was Christopher Nolan who wouldn't let the big kind of suits onto the set of Man of Steel to protect Zack's vision. Get your facts right. Again, they're coming in, but they don't have the facts. Dark Knight Rises and heavily influenced Snyder's Man of Steel. When Ben Affleck, fresh off an Oscar win, signed a multi-film deal to play Batman in 2013, the actor negotiated his Oscar-winning Argo screenwriter Chris Terrio to be brought in to rewrite Batman v Superman. No. He came up with the story. Look, David S. Goyer originally came up with the story and then Chris got involved. It wasn't really a rewrite. They worked on it together. But truth never got in the way of a good story, and Snyder was the face of a franchise. No, truth doesn't get in the way of a good story. Is it Joanne? I've already forgotten your name. You're so forgettable. You're the one making up stories, not us. Anyway. A face of a franchise in much of the same way Kevin Feige is the face of Marvel Cinematic Universe. Snyder, however, was never actually in charge of the studio. No, he's not in charge of Warner Brothers, and no one ever said he was, but he was in charge of running the DCEU, which isn't actually a studio. Love. Still, fandom campaigns often stem from an idea of ownership. You mean the same ownership that you people think you have? Anyway, the notion that the viewers know best how a story should be told, this particular fandom, for better or worse, had decided Zack Snyder and only Zack Snyder should be the one to tell the story of the Justice League, after which release Snyder Cut, not release the director's cut. As fan voices have been amplified in the age of social media, the relationship between studios and their audience have grown more interactive. A studio today would be unlikely to make a property like Ghost in the Shell with a white actress in the leading role after online backlash helped sink the Scarlett Johansson-led adaptation of the popular Japanese anime. And due to protest online, white actor Ed Sheeran backed out playing the historical Asian Ben Dominio in 2019's Hellboy. The role went instead to Daniel Day-Kim. The Fast and the Furious, good. I like Daniel, by the way. Fast and the Furious films, one of the most widely profitable franchises in the world, make ample use of fan reaction in crafting their story. Series star and producer Vin Diesel famously pays close attention to his fandom, which is how actors like Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham joined the family and landed their own spin-off. It was the fans who brought both Michelle Rodriguez's character Letty and Sung Kang's back from the dead. The latter popped up as a surprise in a recent trailer for F9, which boasted the tagline, "Justice is coming." A director nod to the fan hashtag Justice for Han, further evidence of how much pride Diesel takes in the progressive diversity of his muscle-bound car franchise. But while the Fast and the Furious fandom seems to exist in a space of almost supernatural positivity, wow, this is brilliant. Massive fandoms behind geek monoliths like Star Wars come with vicious, loud voices who work hard to ruin the fun. Wow. A segment of the Lucasfilm community that was dissatisfied with Rian Johnson's Last Jedi mercilessly hounded both the director and at least one of his stars, Kelly Marie Tran. I like Kelly Marie Tran, by the way. In the wake of that film, J.J. Abrams' decisions to reverse some of Johnson's choices and the sidelining of Tran from his sequel, The Rise of Skywalker, felt like a direct response to those voices. Or maybe Tran wasn't part of his vision to begin with. Have you ever thought about that, Joanna? Fan movements with some sort of social messaging behind them, be it improving Hollywood's diversity or actual charitable campaigns, are the most powerful of all. And here the Release the Snyder Cut crowd found some protection, combining their efforts to resurrect a superhero film with some very real and unimpeachable good in raising money for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. The fundraising aspect helped reinforce a narrative that if not for his family's tragedy, Snyder would have delivered Justice League free from studio intervention. Some behind-the-scenes reporting has indicated that that's not the case. The altruistic aspect of the Release the Snyder Cut movement even inspired celebrities who might otherwise have stayed out of it to add their voices. Several members of the Justice League cast tweeted out the hashtag as part of the fundraiser back in November. And they're showing us the tweets. The fan movement, spurred on by Snyder and his allies, was emboldened when they saw the movie that Warner Brothers released. The studio tried to claim that much of Snyder's vision had been preserved in the theatrical version, but Henry Cavill's heavily CGI's upper lip, a digital attempt to hide his Mission Impossible mustache during Whedon's reshoots, exposed just how little of the director's own scenes made it into the final product. The truth about whether or not Snyder's version even existed at all ceased to matter. Snyder claimed it did. Posting film canisters labelled ZSJL Director's Cut, running time 214. Back in December, the Whedon-Snyder version was only 121 minutes. Cavill has said that there may be footage that has been pieced together, but that he hasn't seen it. Kevin McCarthy, here's a tweet from Kevin McCarthy. I have not seen the Snyder Cut. Henry Cavill and I geek out about our shared love for Zack Snyder's masterful Man of Steel, his idea for the future of his Superman character, and how his character in The Witcher is a combination of Batman and Superman. I don't know, she's got this tweet up there. Whatever it was, Snyder had in that can. According to the Hollywood Reporter, the vision coming to HBO Max in 2021 will require at least $20 million to pull off and may even entail another round of extensive reshoots. Thankfully, Cavill will be freshly shaved. Why would anyone object to a project that will employ a number of people and make a certain fandom extremely happy, at least at the prospect of it? If not the final result during these troubled times, the main concern, where there is concern, is that Warner Media, in harnessing a fan movement to promote the launch of HBO Max next week, has rewarded entitled fandoms of the future. Even if you believe badly, you too could get your own version of a Snyder Cut. Wow. And what does she say? The launch of the HBO Max next week has rewarded entitled fandoms of the future. Even if you behave badly, you too could get your own version of a Snyder Cut. Hang on, right? And even if you, a journalist or a blogger, behave badly and insult people, you still get a lot of money. You get to schmoo with directors and writers, and nothing happens to you. And Joanne, you are behaving badly because you are creating a false narrative. You're salty. I want your salty tears in a pint glass, right? I want them in a pint glass so I can drink them, sweetie. I really do. Despite good they have done raising money for worthy cause, it's hard to ignore the toxic side of this fandom, which has targeted and harassed critics who have dared even to tweet criticism about Snyder's work. I have been told to kill myself on countless occasions by Twitter accounts with either Superman or Batman logo. Look, that isn't funny. And if someone's done that, that isn't on, right? But we don't actually know if that's true, right? But nobody should ever tell anyone to do that. Let's be straight about that. When fandom becomes identity, every negative review seems like a personal attack. Oh, hang on. You mean the way you attack Zack Snyder's films, right? A little bit like that, right? In not only giving over to these fans, but using their language, released the Snyder Cut in its official announcement, HBO Max has given legitimacy to all actions of this fandom. Not very heroic of them. Wow. Wow, Joanna, we need to talk, sweetie. We really do. So, Joanna Robinson. I must remember that name. Joanna Robinson. Let's go. Let's clear the throat. Right. Joanna Robinson, right? The only bad behaviour was you and your fellow bloggers and journalists and critics. You purposely went after this man in a negative way, right? You don't like his style. You don't like it because he's different, right? You don't like it because he's a unique auteur, director, writer, storyteller. You don't like the fact that he doesn't make processed food. He makes fresh food instead of processed food. And you don't like that. And you and your fellow bloggers, critics and reporters have gone after this man and tried to drive him out of the industry. That's a fact. And even after he lost his daughter, you lot were still doing it, right? So we've been campaigning to release the Snyder Cut. You're talking about bad behaviour. Are you angry about us being rewarded? Or are you angry that you and your fellow journalists and Access Media have finally lost your power and your ability to control Hollywood? Because Warner Media and AT&T don't care, do they, what you think? You've just wasted probably hours and hours of putting together misinformation and, ill-informed logic and narratives when nobody's listening. I'm listening. The fans are listening. You're trying to... What was it that Andy Sigmore said? I tried to kick dirt in their eyes. It's exactly what you're doing. You're like a spoilt child who didn't get their own way, right? Let's be clear here, Joanna. A wrong was made to two creatives in Zack Snyder and David Ayer. They had a vision, and because of people like you and people within Access Media, and because you are more toxic than anyone, all of you, you rallied up the mainstream audience to hate this man, and he was trolled, and allegedly his daughter was trolled as well on social media, which could have led to what happened to her. We don't know that. So when you talk about toxicity, Joanna, you have to be very, very careful in this world and in this life, right? Because you and the rest of Access Media have got a further way to fall than we have. We just reacted to your toxicity, and that isn't the right way. And I would never threaten you, and I would never go after you. But at the end of the day, Joanna, what you're doing here is making certain assumptions, and I know what you're trying to do. And maybe you want us to go after you. Don't do it, people. Ignore her. Ignore people like this. We won. We got what we want. Now, on the subject of entitled fandoms, I've said this before and I'll say it again. We are the customer. We are paying money. The entertainment industry is a public service, like a supermarket, like a bus, like a coach, like a train. And basically, if the train doesn't have a wheel on it anymore, people are not going to pay to go on there, right? And I've given you the analogy of drinking Coca-Cola and tasting vinegar, which is what Joss Whedon's Justice League is, right? We're entitled because we are entitled, sweetheart. We pay money. We expect the service. I went to see Zack Snyder's Justice League and got something totally different, which broke my heart, right? Because we are invested in these things. There's many, many lonely people out there that have only got films and TV shows to think about and to watch. You must understand that. You must be a very wealthy, well-to-do young woman who's got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, the best life ever. So you don't know what it's like to be on the other side of the tracks. The fans, the customer, the consumer are ordinary working-class people, and this is all they've got. And by you kicking, as I've said before, dirt in our eye, you are labelling us But in fact, you're labeling yourself toxic. You wrote this article because you don't like the fact that you and the rest of your access media not only don't have access anymore, and you certainly are not going to have a lot of access to this film or any other project that's going to happen on HBO Max, which is to do with Snyder. She made some very interesting claims about Zack Snyder's popularity. Zack Snyder's popular not just because he's a very talented, unique creative, that he's a very good man. We heard the podcast yesterday with Ray Fisher saying that he treats the janitors the same as he does the actors. He treats everyone on a good level as human beings. He's a decent human being. We already know that. Who should I back? Who should I back, Joanna? You, a journalist, and your profession, who have been going after this man for so many years because, as I said, he produces fresh food instead of condensed food, right? That's the issue here. That's the problem. And you've tried to drive this man, this unique, different individual. It's no different to me being on TikTok. When I'm on TikTok, I'm labelled an old man who shouldn't be on the platform because I'm different and my content is different. This is exactly what you people have done to Zack. It's over, Joanna. Your reign of terror is over. Yes, the fans are running the show now. So I'll tell you what you can do, Joanna. You can go and get me a lovely cold slush puppy because it's really hot here in Cyprus. And you are now serving us, yes. And your roles and positions are under threat because movements like the Fandom Menace, which I don't approve of everything they do and say, right, are fans who are saying, hang on, The Last Jedi wasn't good enough. The direction, this is not Star Wars. They excluded George Lucas. They were exposed. Lucasfilm were exposed. And Warner Brothers and Kevin Tsujihara were exposed. As I said, death threats and aggression like that, I can't approve of. Of course I can't. No decent human being should. But what I will say about this whole situation is Joanna has no evidence. She's not producing any evidence. She says she's been threatened before. Why haven't you screenshot this, Joanna, so we can see this, so we can condemn the people who have done this to you? Should I tell you why, Joanna? Because you are a liar. You are losing your power. You are losing your access. We are the champions, my friends. No time for losers. The haircut's coming. The Snyder Cut's coming. And who knows what other part of Zack's vision is coming. We won. We got together to put right a wrong. If anyone was a victim of toxicity, it was Zack Snyder from you and the rest of Access Media. Comment down below. Like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with the DCEU Daily. See you again soon.